Hi, and welcome to the Coaching Experiment, a podcast that was born because someone planted a seed. A friend asked a simple question. In my world, that's what coaching is all about. It's about setting a space or creating a space which allows the coachees to inquire, to look deeper, to look further. I created this podcast because I wanted to give people who are looking for a coach or who are seeking to transform the opportunity to have a look or to experience what it might feel like to work with me. I do my best to ask questions. I dare to ask questions that are sometimes extremely direct, and some people might not be comfortable being asked direct questions, but this is my style. If you're looking for a coach or you're simply looking to transform, then may I invite you to have a look at this episode and all other episodes that I am going to create in the future. This episode in particular was not intended for this series, simply because when I recorded this conversation, it was way back in January, and I had no intention of doing a second podcast, let alone asking and inviting my guests to be my coachees and to allow themselves to be seen by one and all, or whoever happens to watch, in what can be, and what I call the hot seat, which can get uncomfortable. But on that day, this podcast was born. A seed was planted by this lady, by Denise Pink. She said one simple thing to me, and it set me thinking, but I disregarded it because of a simple belief that I had that I couldn't do it. Well, simply, she said one simple thing. She said to me, you put the spotlight on all your guests and you make it about them, and you're a wonderful interviewer. Where are you? It's kind of what I heard was, I'd like to see more of you. I'd like to see more of what you do. And that day, this conversation inadvertently turned into a coaching conversation. It was not her intention. It was not my intention. It was two women coming together to have a conversation about permission to be you. But during the entire conversation, I put on my coaching cap. And I suppose it was my first learning experience, in the sense of watching myself back and then having the courage to create something, having the courage to create a series. The content of this episode, the show notes, are in the comments in this YouTube channel. You can read what it's all about. And now I'll just let you watch Denise and I have a wonderful, playful conversation. So I start our conversation, we're just giggling away. Okay, as I was just telling you, I'm trying to change, to experiment with this podcast. And with my other guests, I introduce them. Usually I don't. And I was too late in asking you for your bio. I did have a look at your LinkedIn profile, and I saw that you're an IT programmer and that German is listed as one of your languages. I thought, So today, my guest, as usual, is someone that I can't say I know really well. I know her on Facebook. We had another conversation before this one. And I invited her to be my guest. I think she was a little apprehensive at saying yes. Now, soon she will correct me if I'm saying the wrong things. I know very little about you. So without further ado, my guest is Denise Pink. But before you introduce yourself, I want to ask you a question I've been meaning to ask you for a long time, but I reserved it especially for this conversation.
Good. I'm good.
So your surname is Pink, and every time I've seen you, we've been together on other Zoom calls with other people. I noticed that you had pink clothes, pink jackets hanging behind you on a wardrobe, and that you always have some shade of pink. Is Pink your surname, or did you have it done especially for you? And I don't think I have anything else to add. Is Pink your surname?
It is legally my surname, yes.
Wow,
but I
lovely.
wasn't born Denise Pink, because I've been married twice, so I've had 3 surnames before this one.
I thought you were born with the surname Pink.
No,
Okay.
no, that would have been wonderful, but no, I wasn't. And so I just decided after I got divorced the second time that I wanted to change my name. And I was trying to work out what to change it to, and I just couldn't think. I was tying myself up in knots, right? And then eventually I thought, oh well, sod it. I'll just have my favorite color, which is pink. And I thought, oh, I could spell it differently so that would be a bit more individual. I don't know really what I was doing, but I was just trying to, I don't know, I just fancied something different. And I thought, oh, I could have PYNKE or something, And I thought, oh, how awkward is that going to be? Any time you have to phone someone up, and I'd have to spell my name out every time I was trying to. So anyway, so I just thought, no, I'll just go for standard spelling of Pink. So I just filled in all the forms and change my name.
Oh, voila. Okay, so we know the story about your surname, and that quenched my curiosity. Can you tell us briefly a little bit more about you? I understand, I know that you have children, but can you tell us why you accepted my invitation? Don't start with that. First, tell us. Tell us a bit about you, who you are, what you're passionate about, what you've done in your life.
That's a bit. I always find that question really quite difficult. So there's the kind of history bit, where I worked in IT for 10 years, and then I had a few uninspiring kind of jobs after I left school. And then I worked in IT for 10 years. I lived in Switzerland for 4 years in the 1980s.
I saw that.
Yeah, and
Wonderful.
then it was beautiful country. And then I came back to England. I got married. I had 2 daughters. And when my eldest daughter was born, I stopped working, and I was what's called a stay-at-home mum for a number of years. And then after my second daughter was born, I got really interested in alternative therapies, I guess. I didn't want to go back into IT, but I wanted to do something. And I got involved in some alternative therapies, like bioenergetic health and EFT and Reiki and those sorts of things. And I guess from that point on, in fact, earlier than that, I used to be reading Zig Ziglar and Anthony Robbins when I was, I suppose, at the end of early 90s. But from that point on, after I had my children, I got really interested in alternative therapies and organic food. And it sort of started like that. But then I got really interested in, well, why, how's this whole life thing work? You know, why is it seen one way one time and then another day it feels different? You know, what's going on? And I got really interested in that. And so then I was reading all sorts of stuff about that. I did a couple of coaching courses. I went out to the States and did a coaching course out there. Only a short course, but I was just intrigued by it.
I was
and then
pardon?
Intrigued
By it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's really, I suppose, what I've been following all the time, this desire to understand myself as a human more deeply. You know, like those questions that people ask, like, you know, is this it?
Is this it? Is this what life is all about? Or what is it?
Yeah, but how does it work? And how do I, to some extent, how do I make it work better for me? Or why do things happen to me? Or those sorts of questions about looking at life and saying, well, can I control it? How can I control my life better? What's really going on?
That would be a wonderful conversation to have on another podcast, methinks.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I know a little bit more about you. I realized there are some things that I didn't know. Well, I suppose there are a lot of things that I don't know. Why did you accept my invitation to be on this podcast? What does... I know that you're a listener. Thank you. I really, really, really enjoy. I'm grateful for your support. What is it about the sentence "permission to be you" that appeals to you, that resonates with you? Or why do you want to contribute to this conversation that is really, really close to my heart?
I suppose the honest answer would have to be that I feel like for quite a lot of the time, I haven't really been me. If I look back in my life, and I think I guess it's about self-acceptance, or that's a bit, I don't really like that phrase. No. How can I put that better? I think it's about valuing ourselves as individuals.
So the words "permission to be you" mean, I'm trying to understand what you mean. So I try to translate it in my own words, which means permission to be you means self-acceptance and valuing who you are as a person.
Yes, I think it has a lot to do with this. I feel like I've conformed to what I've thought society has wanted of me for a lot of the time. And there's a yearning, if you like, in me to just simply be who I am in the world. So to not have to conform to not feel like I have to be careful what I say, or that I can't just turn up as myself. I think there's a freedom in that. I'm not sure, it's really actually quite difficult. You've asked me the question I knew you were going to ask me, and it's quite hard to really say what it is, you know.
I think, if I may, you said something that struck me, and you said, if I'm really honest. And that to me is giving yourself the permission to be you. You said, if I'm really honest, I don't think I've actually been doing that. I find myself conforming and trying to do what people what I think people want of me. And I think that's really, it's really wonderful that you're being so honest about it. You're being so raw about it, especially considering and especially knowing that people are going to be listening. That's wonderful. So, can you give me an example of what you deem as not being yourself, or not a story? I think this is really important. I think this is important that you've been so honest about it, and you're willing to play, and you're willing to be challenged, to be looking at yourself in this way. Because there are many people out there who do conform. And don't you think for a second that I don't at times, and still do? It's just because I've got this podcast doesn't make me any more, you know. I do conform. I do stop myself. I do try to think what people are thinking and try to behave, as they say.
Yes, I'm trying to think of. Well, I think it is detrimental. I'm trying to think of an example that I could give you. You know, partly it's quite difficult to think of an example because I think it's such a habit. You know, I'm in my 50s, I've been doing it for a long time, and I think a lot of it is a habit of just being very aware of what I think other people are thinking about me. Do you know what I think I'm seeing somebody reacting? I'm trying to think of an example that would really.
So, what did you just said something of being? It's a habit. So, were you conditioned into behaving yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
And I should be writing notes. You said something just now. You said of being aware what other people are thinking of me. And why do you give it so much importance? Please feel free to say, I don't want to answer this question, okay?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you see, you've asked me why I wanted to come on this, why I said yes. And this is a bit of an aside, but I think it's quite an interesting one, is that I wanted to, when you said you were doing this podcast, I wanted to raise my hand and say, oh yes, Diane, I would love to be a guest on your podcast. But I didn't do that initially. But what occurred to me, like just really like yesterday even, is that what I really want is just to experience what it's like to sit here with you asking me a question. I really don't know what you're going to ask. I knew you were going to ask one of them, and I can think of a ton of questions you might ask me, but I don't know what any of them are. And I thought, what a great experience to just sit here and see what you ask and what response comes from me. Given that I'm aware that I do, I'm like, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. That's what people don't do that. But so just to sit here with you and just to say, okay, what response is Denise Pink going to give? Without any preparation.
What's coming up for me right now, Denise, is I wish I could hug you. Honestly. I really wish I could hug you for this is certainly this is certainly not what I was expecting from this conversation. I don't know what I was expecting. This is it. This is it. This is what we bring to life. We never know what's going to come out of our mouths until we say it. until it just pops out. The interesting thing for me is that me as Diane, sometimes words just fly out of my mouth before I can say mum. And you are allowing yourself right now in a circumstance that is not ideal, because people are going to be listening to you. Hopefully, sometime down the line, thousands of people are going to be listening to you, which is amazing. And if someone just happens to hear, to listen to, I'm curious to know what it would be like to just allow myself to be open, to be curious, to play, and let Denise be herself. That's what you have given me. And right now you have given me a really huge gift. You can't see Denise's face, but she's beaming right now.
And what's so freeing about that for me, I think, is that as in this moment, as we're sitting here, it's it feels to me like I don't really care what anybody else thinks about Denise Pink, in the sense that that's not that's I don't even know how to, I don't even have the words, you know.
Yeah. Why have you cared before?
Well, I want to be clear. I'm not sure I won't ever care again, because I'm
well, as I
will.
said before, I still do care
Yeah.
sometimes. So I think it's perfectly human.
Yeah. Why have I cared so much before? Because I think I grew up in an environment which was quite fearful in terms of I want to tell you a story, but it's kind of a little bit embarrassing. I'm going to tell you this story, right? So like when I was a kid, I love my parents dearly, by the way. When I was a kid and we used to go on holiday, I grew up in like a semi-detached house in a suburban area, nothing special or whatever, really. And we had our garage was like at the bottom of our back garden. You got to it through like a little alleyway that went round the back. You could drive round and drive into the garage, right? So there's the front of the house which faces on the road, garage at the back. And when we used to go on holiday, we didn't used to go abroad, we used to always drive in the car. What used to happen was my dad would have us load the car up this is how I remember it, in the dark in the garage, so that the idea being that nobody would know that we were going away, so that I assume I guess because he thought somebody might burgle a house, or I don't know, something like that. I mean, I'm just guessing, because actually I don't, as I'm telling the story, actually I realize I don't know. But it was one of those things, and if we were noisy, or if I was noisy, and you know, then that was like a bad thing, you know. And that's kind of an embarrassing story to tell, and that is how I remember it. And maybe, you know, my brother might not remember it that way. So I think I got this impression, and I don't think it's anything that anybody said to me, but I got this impression that if you stick your head above the parapet, somebody will shoot it off.
If you stick your head above the parapets, I'm not always it's a bit low. So if you stick your head above the parapet, your head will get you. What did you say?
I said someone will shoot your head off.
Oh, that's better.
And that's,
you're a bit louder now. So.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to? Yeah, I can change
yes,
this
please.
microphone.
Because you're very soft spoken, which is wonderful.
Oh, okay. So that's the kind of, I mean, nobody said that to me. That's just what comes to mind when I think about it. So I guess that I feel that there's, or have felt more, that there is some sort of danger in being that expression of just being me. That there's some kind of, I don't know, vulnerable, that's just one example, but like a vulnerability, or there's more of like a danger of, in some way.
So if you've grown up with this feeling, right, if I myself, my head's going to get shot off.
Well, that's a bit extreme, isn't it?
Yes,
Sure
but
really
as a child, we're easily impressionable. We do take our memories with us into adulthood, and we tend to, unless we become super aware of it, we tend to have it there in the background, just niggling away, and we don't even realize that what's stopping us until we look at it. And just now you've put a light on it. You've really put a spotlight on it. If you're going around feeling that way, you're not going to show up. You're not going to give yourself permission to be Denise, because there is true and actual danger. I mean, okay, the expression you use, but you did use, if you put your head above the parapet, your head will get shot off. I mean, that's really powerful.
Yeah, that surprised me that I've said it that way. You know, that's really quite surprised me. And I wonder if I really feel it that strongly. But it's interesting because that's what came out of my mouth, isn't it?
How has it been detrimental to you not being yourself? We talked about detriment just earlier on, being detrimental. I know for sure it's been detrimental to me.
I don't think I've enjoyed myself as much as I could have. Maybe there's things I haven't done that I would have done. That's probably true. But I just don't think I've enjoyed myself as much. And I don't think I think I've made myself smaller, not physically, you understand, but in terms of a life. It's a smaller life. Yeah, that's it. Smaller life. It's just making me laugh because I realize it sounded really serious when I was talking, that this whole thing about getting your head shot off over parapets and things. In a way, I'm kind of finding it a little bit amusing now. But yeah, I just feel there's more to life. I feel like in those moments where I've been myself, I've enjoyed myself more. And it's, you know, the thing that stopped me putting my hand up to say, oh yes, Diane, I'd love to be on your podcast, was some form of, I think some sort of form of, oh, well, who am I to do that? And who cares what I think? And who wants to listen to me go on about something? And do I know enough? And, you know, all of that sort of stuff that's just shrinks my world.
Yes. And you reminded me once again of my all-time favorite quotes, and that's the one of Marianne Williamson, where she talks about who am I to, I don't know the exact words, I'll paraphrase, who am I to flout or to blow my trumpet? Why not, is her question. Acting small isn't what you're meant to be doing. You're meant to be, the best thing we could do for another person is let our light shine so that they unconsciously can do the same themselves. And I mean, you chose Pink as a surname. Wonderful. Pink is really shiny, and I like the color. And as I said before, I don't know you that much, but the little that I do, you've impacted me, and the things that you said you're soul searching, you're questioning, and who you are as a human being, what you stand for. So, yeah, and I have done that myself. I have tried to make myself small so that others around me wouldn't feel small. But does it make sense, really?
No, it doesn't make sense. Because there's something so wonderful about seeing somebody just expressing themselves. That's a really crappy phrase, actually. I can't think of how to put it. Well, it's not what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
It's not the right phrase.
Show up?
Well, you know, when someone is just so alive, you know, when you see somebody who's just really alive, full of life and just living it, getting on with, you know, just doing whatever occurs to them and letting life just happen, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously we've all got that possibility. And when I watch somebody else who I think is like, you know, living like that, and I feel their energy, it really excites me. It makes me want to allow myself to be alive too, really alive. I mean, obviously I'm alive, but words are such a difficult thing.
Yes, and they're all we've got. So let's think of, give me an example of how you would like to show up in the world as opposed to how you were showing up in the world. Because I had a conversation with you recently in The Power of Three. And this is going to make people curious, probably wondering what the power of three is. I'm not going to get into that. The person that came across to me was this person who was vibrant, who was full of energy, who wanted to shake the world, who wanted to say to the world, there is so much potential in you. Share it. But what came after that was, does anybody want to hear my bullshit? That's my interpretation of it. Doesn't mean it was bullshit. It's what I understood. It's what I heard you saying. And so you have a lot to offer. Having that said, that doesn't mean that we have to show up and give that or offer that because I said so, you see, because that tends to put pressure on someone. You have a lot to offer, go give it, blah, 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 you know? How would you be different? How would you allow people to like I can see you, I think you give me that gift. You show up as Denise. And you know, you don't need to make any excuses for it. You don't need to apologize. What's different out there in our physical world that's not on virtual reality like we're seeing it now? Well, hope that wasn't a complicated question.
Well, what I heard you say was, why don't I do that more? Is that really what you're asking me?
Yeah. What's stopping you?
Well, I guess I second guess myself. I think it's become more important more important for me now than it has before. I think I'm recognizing more that's what I'm doing. I'm recognizing that I'm not being myself more. I'm looking at that more. I guess I'm kind of at that point where I think, well, what the fuck's the point? Are we good to swear on here, Diane?
Of course, permission to be you.
Excellent. Oh yeah, excellent. So I'm thinking, what the fuck am I doing? What's the point if I'm not going to allow myself to be that? What is the point? There's no point walking around just going through the motions. There's no point if there's no, I don't mean if there's no pleasure, but there's so much fun to be had, so much satisfaction, personal satisfaction in being who I am in the world. It excites me. I find and I just like, what I tend to do is I like put my, I'll put something out in the world I'll put something out in the world, and then sometimes I get a little bit scared
of what people might say.
Well, I just kind of get scared. I don't know. It's not that anyone says anything necessarily, but I get in my head and I'm like, oh, but what if this? What if that? And that then just holds me back. It comes back to that thing where I didn't put my hand up to say yes, I wanted to be on this podcast. It's exactly the same thing. It's like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, but hold on a second. Oh, I want to do that.
Yeah. I find that I do this. What are people going to think? I find myself doing this, but more often than not, I just say to myself, somehow I find myself doing it before I can even stop myself. Even though I'm asking myself these questions. What will people think? I think that people are too busy with themselves to be bothered about what another person is doing. I think we're so self-centered that we will think for a second, oh, look what she's done. But then they'll go back to thinking about themselves, full stop. Because this is how we're made. This is how we're wired. I think it's part of surviving. I was going to ask you another question. I was going to ask you, if you weren't to have any filters and to not stop yourself, and what is Denise like? Who is Denise like with her kids without filters? Who is Denise? How does she show up in her family life? There we don't have filters. At least I hope not at home with our. I think we wouldn't be able to survive. It wouldn't be real.
Well, I'm not sure that is completely true for me. If you said that, how do I show up with my daughters? Then I still think that people have certain types of filters to some extent.
Even with their children?
Yeah, I think so. If I think about it, then it's like, certainly when my children were young, I think it's very obviously very different now because they're grown up. But there were certain things involved in the role of being a parent. So there are roles to some extent that make us be different. Then maybe, I don't know. Yeah, that's a really cool question.
Who is Denise? What's she like? If she weren't to filter her actions, what is she like? Because I feel a really bubbly, energetic woman. That's what I feel.
Yeah. I think, if I wasn't to filter, I'd be the person who was going around hugging people. I'd be the person who was laughing a lot and at lots of things. And yeah, I'd be doing probably crazy things, I guess. I don't even know. You were asking me a question that I have really I can't give you absolutes.
Crazy thing. Can you give me an example of what a crazy thing would look like for you? What is...
Okay, a crazy thing would be like creating some kind of really loving community. I don't even know what the details of this are, but this is just what I'm just saying what comes to me. The crazy thing would be to think that I could create something that would impact hundreds of people's lives, hundreds of people's lives.
What's crazy about that? That's
I don't
absolutely
know.
beautiful.
But you see, you asked me what's a crazy idea, and that's just what came to mind.
It's not crazy. It's absolutely wonderful. It's crazy because it seems impossible.
I don't know why it's crazy. Honestly, I don't know why that label is on it, but it seems that that's the label I have for it right now.
This conversation is pointing to our inner chatter, the stories that we create, we hold on to, and stop us from carrying out brilliant ideas. Because this is a brilliant, wonderful idea. The only person stopping us from doing what we want to do, from being who we are, not who we want to be, who we are, is ourselves. Nobody needs to give me permission to be who I am. I thought that's the way it worked. Until I realized that nobody could give me that permission. I was the only one who could do that. And nobody could give me the permission to start a podcast. I was the only one to do that. Nobody could give me the permission to start my business and be a coach. But in all these things, I realize in hindsight, as I look back, I tried to stop myself. I had this chatter. What are people going to think? Is it going to work? Is it crazy? Am I going to succeed? And most people, I think, really hold on to the chatter, really hold on to the story that we all make up from moment to moment to moment. So this reinforces my passion and my drive to get as many people to listen to this conversation so that they can realize that whatever anybody thinks about us, about me, about Denise Pink in this case, has absolutely nothing to do with me, but everything to do with them, because the way they look at me is, as you correctly pointed out, to their own labels, to their own perception, to their own lenses. That's what comes to me right now. I don't have any more questions, except that perhaps how do you hope to contribute? Well, is that a fair question? How would you hope to contribute to to seeing people take off their masks, or to shine like the true diamond that they are. Is that a fair question?
Probably. Well, any question's a fair question. It's just whether I'm going to answer it or not, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Well, I am a coach. And so one of the things I'm really wanting to do is to work with people. You know, I don't like the word work very much. What I want to do is have conversations with people and explore this kind of thing together. Because everybody has those secret dreams or whatever, don't they?
Yes, they do. Well, I'm not sure if everybody does, but as children, we do dream, and we do think, yes, when I grow up, I'd like to be this, and then we get lost in the rat race and start to think and believe that we have to pay our taxes, to put food on the table, to get clothes, to feed our children, to send them to school. We have to conform and get a job. And
but what's interesting about that, Diane, is when it seems like Diane Swearup has to do that. It seems like Denise Pink has to do that. Like these little, like me as this little human running around on the planet, I have to do all of these things. But this human isn't the whole story, is it? This human is just this little, it's just this expression of that life comes through. So it's not the responsibility isn't. This is what I've been thinking for so long. What I thought for so long was, oh, this Denise Pink, me, I have to be responsible for all this stuff. I have to make all this stuff happen. But that's not the real story.
what is the real story?
It seems to me like this energy. It's just this energy of life that just creates everything. I don't make the sun rise every morning. I don't do so many of the things. I think I'm in control of so much, me, this little human Denise, but actually I'm not. When I sit back and relax, when I'm not trying to make everything happen, then somehow I get inspired to do things.
And how can you shift that to, how can you shift that to relaxing? Because if you just said something really that I resonate a lot with, I don't think I'm in control. I'm not even in control of the words that come out of my mouth. So I'm not in control of the way I'm being in any given moment. And people will take exception to that. People will strongly disagree with that. But I've come to see that there are things I have said which I didn't want to say, and I didn't intend to hurt anyone. They just flew out of my mouth. So how can you turn around that energy to Denise and say that you're not in control? I mean, we're in control. We have an ego. We know not to go and jump off a roof because it will kill us, and we know not to murder anyone because it's sad. It's horrible. How can you turn that into Denise knowing this energy of life, that you're not in control of the sun rising, you're not in control of anything. So you're not in control of Denise. That sounds a bit woo-woo. It sounds a bit out there.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It does. It does.
So this is why I come back to the subject, permission to be you, and life, and who I am, and Denise and who she is, and how somehow out of all the possibilities, she's taken this form in this body, with those eyes, with that nose, with that mouth, and just showing up like you were doing today, without any filters. So that's how it feels to me, that you're not filtering, you're just being Denise.
For the most part, I think. There's something in what you're saying that's really
Can't find the words?
no, I just don't. There's something about that not being in control, and there's also there's an innocence about this thinking. Like,
Yes.
so when I was so there's an innocence about it. So I get caught into this. I have been caught. So, for example, when I was about 40, I guess, for all of my life, as far as I could remember, everyone had said I was shy. Right? Everyone said I was shy. It's on my school reports. I've got written evidence. Everyone said I was shy. And I just would say, oh, I can't do that because I'm shy, blah, blah, blah. And then when I was about 40, I was talking to somebody. And I must have said, I don't remember the exact details of what I said. And I said something, oh, I can't do that because I'm shy, whatever it was. And this person I was talking to, she just looked at me and she just said, you're not shy. And there was just something about the way she said it, or I don't know what there was about it, but I knew she was right. I knew she was right. That wasn't, that shy wasn't a thing that applied to me. Probably doesn't apply to anybody, but it didn't apply to me. And I knew in that moment that she was completely right. And I started going dancing. I started going to the speakers club. I started doing these things that I hadn't done because I was shy. And nobody, because, you know, the question that comes to my mind, and came to my mind the other day about something else, was, but what if that's not true? So all that time I was thinking, oh, I'm shy. Well, so I'm not doing that because I'm shy. But what if that's not true? It's just,
mind-blowing.
It's just, there just aren't, my mind just completely goes still. You know, they're like this, like, whoa, what do you mean? What if that's not true? And in all those 40 years, nobody had said to me, as far as I remember, nobody had said, it even questioned it. When, if I had said, oh, I can't do that, oh, I'm too shy, nobody said, oh, are you sure about that? What do you mean you're too shy? You know, nobody had ever said that. It was like, oh, right, you're too shy. And so it's that buying into that whole thing of, and there's complete innocence in it. I had no idea it wasn't true until I knew it wasn't true.
I think this is a perfect place to end the conversation. What if that's not true? What if that's not true?
But what if it's not true?
What if it's not true? Thank you for accepting my invitation. I've enjoyed this conversation thoroughly, Denise.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a real blast. Thank you.
What was your experience of this conversation? Was it difficult? Was it easy? Did you resonate with anything that was said? Or maybe we even had an insight. If you're up for a challenge and you are ready to play, if you are curious about what a conversation can do for you, then go to my website, butv.com, and send me an email. Let's have a conversation. I look forward to meeting you. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.